It was an emotional end to a sensational story, stirring a national debate.
She may look all cute and pretty and everything. She is a criminal. She hurt this child.
I think the punishment was just.
Letourneau violates those conditions in any respect to make some effort to make contact with her victim. I think the sky is going to fall on her very hard.
I had some grocery bags that I was about to take in the house. I put the grocery bag on the floor in front of me. Well, apparently the grocery bag was pushing on the brake, and a police car went around the block twice and said, I wonder what the deal is, that car's brakes are still on. And I said, open the door and run.
On November 14th, 1997, a packed King County courtroom watched as Superior Court Judge Linda Lau delivered her ruling. 35-year-old Mary Kay Letourneau, who had pleaded guilty to second-degree child rape, was sentenced to 6 months in jail, credit for time served, and 3 years of mandated community treatment for sex offenders. In the days following the sentencing, Mary Kay's attorneys appeared on Larry King Live to discuss the ruling, the public reaction, and how this case would affect Mary Kay's life moving forward. They also addressed the unexpected moment in court when the victim's mother, Vili Fualaau, pleaded with the judge for Mary Kay to receive community-based treatment instead of a lengthy prison sentence.
It's rare that the defense attorney and the attorney for the victim's family can sit on the same stage and say, we both won.
And why, Robert, was the victim, in your mind, not a victim?
More than in my mind, Larry, in his family's mind. His mother is a remarkable woman. She was very upset at first and had not an overnight conversion, but through faith and through her, I guess, generosity of heart came to forgive Mary. She also, I think, had the wisdom not to portray her son as a victim, because as we've seen even some experts say, it's not necessarily the best thing for the quote-unquote victim in this instance to make him feel like a victim.
Yeah. Now, David, she will have to serve how many more days under this sentence?
She's got credit for 100 days. She's got about 3 more months to go, just under that, and she'll be released to an approved housing placement, and everything she does for the next 3 years will be monitored, pre-approved, checked on, and subject to polygraphs.
She cannot see the baby who's being raised by the victims, for want of a better term, parents. She cannot see her 13-year-old friend. She can't see any of those people.
She cannot see the 13-year-old boy, now 14, for the maximum term allowed by law, which is 10 years.
Robert Huff, was it not the medical experts and the judges going that way that swayed the day, wasn't it?
You know, Larry, sitting there in the courtroom, I was seated behind the boy's mother. It was very brave of her, I thought, and it was a big effort for her to come out in public like that with all the attention and cameras and so on. She's a very private person. There were some very powerful moments. Her statement, Mary Letourneau's statement, some of the experts. I thought the defense, Mr. Gerke's team, had a very effective expert, Dr. Moore, who spoke very clearly and persuasively, I think, to the court.
We will devoting much more time to this in the days ahead. It's a fascinating case, but in our closing moments with David and Robert. David, what happens to her life? I mean, she can't see her own child. Her husband left her, right? So the children she raised, they're gone. She can't see her baby. What's life going to be like for her?
It's not going to be pleasant. The people that say she got off easy, they don't realize that she can do nothing without multiple layers of permission. Everywhere she goes, when she goes out and applies for a job, the first thing she has to say is, I'm the convicted child rapist. I can't work with the public. I can't be around children, and I can't do anything off-site. Will you hire me? And if she doesn't get a job, she can't pay for treatment. If she doesn't pay for treatment, she goes to prison. She did not get off lightly. She has a vigorous, it's better than prison, but she has a very strenuous confinement to her.
And Robert Huff, what's the mental stability, if want of a better term, of the boy?
I'd say, Larry, I saw him last night, as a matter of fact. He was in good spirits. The family has focused him into many activities that any 14-year-old would
But he
do.
has a young daughter at home, right?
Daughter's at home bouncing around in a bouncer.
As Mary Kay served the remainder of her sentence, she was flooded with letters from people around the world who believed she was being wrongfully imprisoned. Many of them argued that her case reflected a double standard and that she should never have been sent to jail in the first place. During this time, Mary Kay was held in solitary confinement. She was allowed out only briefly each day, and the isolation took a visible toll. She was emotional, struggling to cope, and deeply distressed by being separated from her children. In an interview with American Journal, she spoke openly about her pain and the difficulty of her confinement.
Just 4 months ago, Mary Kay was living in this modest home in Seattle, surrounded by her 4 children. Her home today is the King County Jail, many miles away. Since Mary Kay pleaded guilty to child rape in August, she's been confined to a cramped cell like this one, 23 hours a day. She even showers alone because she's in protective custody.
She doesn't have contact with other inmates at all. She has all of her meals in her cell.
For the very first time since her sentencing, Mary Kay has spoken out. She called American Journal Collect from a payphone, her only link to the outside world.
Today I am still in great pain. Pain for my children's loss, being apart from me. My one hope is that this will be a time for my children to give their gift of love to their father.
In an exclusive telephone interview with American Journal, Letourneau described herself as an optimist.
I am trying to make the best use of my time here. I get letters from the communities that really help. There's been actually a global outreach. Yesterday I received 17.
Mary Kay told us she thinks her sentencing was fair, but she isn't pleased about the coverage of her case, calling it a double standard. She is happy, however, that the boy and his mother are raising baby Audrey, now 6 months old.
Knowing that she has the care that she has through her biological family has helped me quite a bit.
Mary Kay has reached out to her children by phone and by mail, including this letter to her eldest son, who is just 1 year younger than the boy who fathered Audrey. Here's an excerpt. My house is only a visiting place until the divorce is finished. Then it becomes a home to you all. That may take several months to all work out, but it will all work out. That is God's truth. And based on American Journal's conversation with Mary Kay, she'll stay strictly within the judge's ruling, telling us, I am not one to fall into darkness, ever.
With Mary Kay behind bars, serving out the remaining months of her sentence before beginning community-based treatment, Vili was trying to adjust to life as a father to their baby daughter. At just 14 years old, he leaned heavily on his mother, Suna, who stepped in to help care for the newborn and support her son. In an effort to show the public what Vili's life looked like during this time, American Journal visited the teen and documented his day-to-day reality as a young father. During the interview, Vili spoke for the first time about his reaction to Mary Kay's sentencing, what life was like caring for his daughter, and what he imagined for his future. His mother, Suna, as well as Mary Kay's estranged husband, Steve Letourneau, was also interviewed for the program.
For the first time since her sentencing, the teenage boy at the center of this scandal breaks his silence. Were you happy with Mary Kay's sentence?
Happy, relieved, wanted to cry, but couldn't.
He's now 14, a little shy, but otherwise a typical teenager. American Journal agreed to obscure his identity. What are your feelings for Mary Kay now?
I love her. I love her with all my heart. And there'll never ever be another person like her. She was just an innocent person, not looking around for boys to have sex with. She was really looking for, was just looking for love, and she just found love in the wrong place.
Since Mary Kay pleaded guilty to child rape in August, the boy's mother has been taking care of Audrey. At Mary Kay's sentencing, the boy's mother made an emotional appeal to the judge to spare Mary from more time in jail.
Mary's not a bad person. She's just a human being that made a terrible mistake.
To protect her family, she asked American Journal to mask her identity. Not only has she forgiven the teacher who committed the ultimate betrayal of trust, she also feels sorry for Mary Kay.
Seeing Mary that day and her crying out for help, please help me. I believe her. I mean, what does she have to lose? She's lost everything else.
Do you consider Mary Kay a member of your family?
I would say she is. She is, after all, the mother of my granddaughter.
For the past 3 months, this 30-something grandmother has been bringing 5-month-old Audrey to visit Mary Kay in jail. They have become friends now, but admits she was shocked when police told her in February about her son and his teacher.
I got the shock on Wednesday, my son having an affair with his teacher. And Friday, I've been hit with another shock that he's going to be a father.
The boy is now in the 8th grade, and his homework includes learning firsthand how to be a parent. At age 14, he seems to take fatherhood seriously. What does Audrey mean to you?
Audrey is my little angel, a princess. I love her a lot.
During her 3-year treatment program, Mary Kay may be allowed supervised visits with her baby daughter, Audrey. But someday, the boy and his mother hope they can raise Audrey together.
It'll be a while before she gets full custody of Audrey, but we'll always share Audrey.
Mary Kay may also get supervised visits with her 4 children, who are now living with their father, Steve, in Alaska. He was in court as his estranged wife was sentenced.
I can go home tonight and I can feel good about telling the children that their mom is not going to be in jail for 7 years.
But as Steve Letourneau prepared to leave Seattle for Alaska, could he ever see the day when he would forgive Mary Kay?
Forgiveness is something it's going to take some time. It depends on Mary Kay.
I hope that he can find it in his heart to forgive Mary and to forgive my son. And don't hate my granddaughter. And hopefully that someday his kids and my granddaughter will be able to live in innocence.
But there are many who say Mary Kay deserves no sympathy. Detective Pat Maley arrested Mary Kay and, along with prosecutors, pushed for a lengthy jail sentence.
It's taken away the deterrent from future offenses from either teachers or anybody else in a superior or supervisory position.
But even now, the victim in this case says he doesn't feel like a victim. He still wears a ring Mary Kay gave him and says their affair was never about age. You don't feel that you were raped?
No, rape is a whole different thing from what she did, what we did.
His mother says when the time is right, they will tell Audrey how she came into this world.
I'll tell her that it was a love story. Because I think, it is a love story.
I would take my love for Mary and keep her love within my heart and just lock it up.
Mary Kay now says she still cannot explain why she threw away her career and family for the love of a teenage boy.
In order for anyone else to understand, Mary needs to understand first. And once Mary understands that, then she can explain it to the rest of us.
Mary Kay was released from prison in January 1998. Following her release, she was expected to begin community-based treatment immediately. But as she adjusted to her new reality, Mary Kay pushed back against several of the restrictions and requirements tied to her court-ordered SOSA treatment, believing some of them were unjust. One of the most difficult conditions required her to tell her children that she was a convicted sex offender, a mandate she refused to follow. Mary Kay insisted that doing so would distort her children's understanding of what had happened. In her eyes, despite her own plea deal, there had been no victim. She later told a reporter, "The SOSA program is designed for pedophiles and baby rapers, not a school teacher in love with one of her students. How can you take a child's perception of reality and abuse it? I would lay down my life before I ever said those things to my children. Certainly, I don't deny that there are dangerous people who violate other people. Is there really a place for them in this society? You have a disorder and you cannot be cured. We can help you control your impulsive behavior, but you cannot be cured.
I'm not saying the reason there's a deterrent title like that is because maybe there are people that a male that might even consider it.
I would say there are people out there.
There might be, and
there are definitely. I mean, for us,
good reason. There's the law is there.
I mean, there could even
right
be a guy that's my age that finds a 13-year-old attractive, and that I don't know. Just for me, I couldn't do it.
I don't, and he doesn't. We're saying neither of us think that way, but we're both happy that there's such a law that's
Mary, you see what I'm saying? And I'm not trying to cause an argument here. When you were 34, you did think that way, and you did do exactly that.
I was pursued, and I didn't think about it. I did not think about it. Didn't.
But that's not an excuse for any crime, is it? And I'm not saying this is. You can't just go, I didn't think about it, see you later, sorry.
No. Morally, I thought about, you know what? I'm not even technically single yet, and he's calling me his girlfriend. And I thought that was, it's like, this is not right. He needs to let me get on with my life, and I'll see you later. I am entirely in support of the laws that are there.
So you're saying it's night and day, for example, between what you did and the laws that would surround pedophilia?
I'm actually was entirely evaluated probably 3-4 times, and there's not a single trait of anything inside of me that that's pretty loud and clear in any document.
That's like
that's a child.
That's like a mental imbalance where somebody has like this, like their attraction, what they're attracted to, it kind of stops.
To prepubescent.
No, a child under.
No, prepubescent.
Well, a child, a 13-year-old would qualify.
He wasn't prepubescent.
Does that make a difference?
Okay, first let's go back. How many 13-year-olds are having sex with 13-year-olds? Plenty across the world, millions and billions.
Not a lot of them are having sex with 34-year-olds.
No, but are they having sex?
It's not relevant.
It's not. It is absolutely relevant. Are they having sex?
I don't see it as being relevant.
Are they having sex?
I'm certain that they are, but how does that relevant to this case?
They're not children. They're developed. They're not children having sex with children. They're teenagers. They're doing actually really, and scholastically and across the board with even in legislation, they recognize that 13-year-olds are going to have sex.
So should we rip up the laws and say it's a free-for-all, 13-year-olds with whoever they like?
No, because there are cases, and it's called strict liability. There are cases where there could be abuse. There could be. So you have to have a law that acts as a deterrent, because there are people who might pursue and abuse a situation. But when 13-year-olds are with 15-year-olds, with 17-year-olds, with those really, when they're with, it's happening. We all know, everybody knows across the world it's happening. Teenagers, it's natural. There's no laws that are saying teenagers can't do that. They're going to. So you don't say, that pedophilia with pedophilia, that doesn't even make sense. It doesn't make sense. There are people that have disorders. The laws have to be there. They absolutely have to be there.
I can see you bristling at any mention of pedophilia in this discussion, Mary. I understand that. Are you saying, what you're saying is that this is a unique case? You've never been attracted to anyone else underage?
Okay, I want this to be useful to your audience, and I don't think it should be confused and overglossing that term is specific, like as Vili was talking. It has nothing to do with me. One, because he wasn't prepubescent. He wasn't a child, and we have to respect the intelligence of your audience.
No, but I've got to jump in on their behalf because when you say he wasn't a child, he was 13.
Stop. Okay, and shall we go back to 13-year-olds or having sex with 13-year-olds?
No. When you say he wasn't a child, that's the only part I'm grappling with.
Okay, if the two 13-year-old teenagers are having sex, do you want to say there's two children having sex? Is that what you would say?
Sure, but then I'd say it's infinitely worse if that 13-year-old has sex with an adult
It
woman.
is true, but we're not, let's not like stray away from, I want to entirely respect the intelligence of your audience. I am offended by the whole line of questioning because I think on an intellectual level, I don't think you're giving, even to ask the question, I think you're misleading the audience to even, and all y'all, just look up the definition and then say, did he even ask the right question?
So why did you spend 7 years in prison? Why were you sent to prison?
We could talk for 4 hours and I would be happy to start. And any attorney out there, any legal authority will be right with me on this. It's called a strict liability law. If sexual intercourse happened, no matter if he was the aggressor, no matter if he initiated it, and being the younger, I am the adult, sexual intercourse happened. In our state, there are 3 elements. Sexual intercourse happened, the age difference, and third element, we were not married. What does that say right there? And we were not married. That means if we had been, in theory, if we had been married, no crime. I'm just saying.
But there's a reason that 13-year-olds don't marry 34-year-olds. It's just not right.
Oh, well, it happened in Virginia.
Well,
legally.
So should it be a free-for-all across the state?
No, but it's not entirely, I'm just saying it's a strict liability, but you keep going back to that part, and I went now, strict liability law means if it happened.
What I'm confused about, Mary, is whether or not you, in your mind, you think you did anything wrong, because you're throwing laws at me and consent and age and marriage.
You're giving your audience, you're throwing in these bandwagon terms, and I think it's confusing them.
Okay, can I put all those terms to one side? Did you do anything wrong?
I've always said, it was, should I have run from him? I did at one point say, you have to go. I did. I cried harder than, and I didn't know I was pregnant. But I did say, you have to go. Do you understand? You have to go. It was very hard.
I think legally it was wrong.
Well, we know legally it was wrong.
Okay.
We
and then
now
emotionally,
we now know that.
Emotionally, the connection that we felt for each other. Your answer would be yes or no.
I'm going to be the same as you. I would not take back anything. I'm going to say the same as you. And if I could do something different, one, I don't live a day like that. I do my best every single day. And I can look back and say, Mary, did you do your best every single day? And I'll say yes.
In the weeks that followed her release, Mary Kay struggled to adhere to the requirements of her court-ordered treatment. Because she did not see herself as a perpetrator, she resisted nearly every part of the process. She canceled appointments, refused to cooperate with her counselor and doctor, and stopped taking her prescribed medication. Her refusal to engage raised concern among her family and friends, concern that only deepened during her 36th birthday party. According to one of her guests, he had begun to suspect that Mary Kay had reunited with Vili after her release, pointing to her growing defiance around treatment as a sign that something had changed. During the party, he confronted her directly, asking how she was staying in contact with Vili. The guest recalled that Mary Kay glanced around the room, cautious, before quietly replying that her friend Abby and her attorney, Bob Huff, were helping her. It's important to note that Huff would later deny these claims, saying, "Neither Mary nor Vili ever put me in that position. They knew I wouldn't do it, and they knew it would get me in hot water with the judge and prosecution. Besides, why would I encourage the relationship between Mary and Vili? I didn't think the relationship was particularly healthy. Let's say that there wasn't equal bargaining power between Mary and Vili. I thought it would be better for him to be without her for a while. Let him be for a few years, so he can move in another direction if he wants to." Despite Huff's insistence that he had not helped Mary contact Vili, Mary Kay's other lawyer, defense attorney David Gerke, acknowledged that a friend of Mary's had indeed helped her maintain contact with Vili.
I had been telling her, you've got to play this game. Go to treatment, and even if you think you don't need it, you'll learn something. But you know who really pissed me off? Was her damn friends that kept feeding her, "It's love. You have a constitutional right to life and liberty and pursuit of happiness, and you should fire Gerke and you should appeal this to the state Supreme Court and get them to overturn it." And they were telling her this, and one of her friends actually bought a cell phone and snuck it to Vili so he could communicate with Mary, knowing that there was a no contact order.
I never imagined there would be a no contact order between me and Vili. We have a child together. We didn't want to be separated. We wanted to be together. So I signed the rules knowing I wasn't going to follow the rules, and I got out.
So you're planning not to comply, and you're totally aware that you're living on borrowed time.
Absolutely.
And you know
100%.
the police are after you because you're sleeping with a 13 or 14-year-old boy.
With Mary Kay's continued contact with Vili, despite the court's no-contact order, it was only a matter of time before she was discovered. In the early hours of February 3, 1998, Seattle police officer Todd Harris was on patrol in a quiet residential neighborhood when he noticed a parked car with its headlights on and the windows fogged with condensation. Inside, a blonde woman sat slumped in the driver's seat, glancing nervously toward the passenger side, where someone appeared to be hiding. Officer Harris ran the plates, circled back, and activated his lights. Startled, Mary stepped out of the vehicle and insisted she was alone. She offered no identification and claimed to be her sister, Terry Schmitz. As the officer continued questioning her, he approached the car and looked inside. There, he saw a teenage boy. Despite giving a false name, it quickly became clear to Officer Harris that the boy was Vili Fualaau.
At about 2:24 in the morning, I was on patrol when I saw a suspicious vehicle parked on the side of the road with its parking lights on. I decided to go ahead and investigate it. As I passed the vehicle, I ran the vehicle's registration on my MDT. I could tell there was two individuals inside the car.
How could you tell that?
Well, I could see that the driver was with their back to the driver's side door with their head pressed actually against the window. So I could tell that it was a blonde-haired driver. And on the other side, she was facing a position that would be very much show that she was talking to somebody who was in a passenger seat, the way she was facing. The passenger seat was in a position that it was laid down where I could not see the headrest. But I could, just by the positioning of the driver, and that I concluded there was probably more than likely two people inside the car.
And so what did you do at that point?
Well, I ran the registration of the vehicle. It took a while to come back to who the registered owner was, so I was several blocks away by the time that came back. When I saw who the vehicle came back to, I went ahead and decided to go investigate it a little bit further.
Who did the registration come back to?
Mary Letourneau.
And was that a name you were familiar with?
Yes, it was.
What did you do then?
At that time, when I pulled up behind the vehicle, I stopped and turned on my spotlight. As soon as the spotlight came on, Mary was outside of the car and coming back towards my patrol car. At that time, I went ahead and got out of my car and contacted her and asked her if everything was okay. She stated yes. I asked if anybody else was inside the car with her. She said no, and I asked her again, and she again said no. and the driver's side door was open, so I went ahead, walked forward, and looked inside the car, and there was a young man inside the car.
At any point, did she give you a name?
She did, in fact. She gave me a name of Terry Schmitz.
And at what point did she give you that name?
When I asked her after she had stated that she didn't have a driver's license, she said her name was Terry Schmitz.
And what did you do in response to that?
I went ahead and wrote it down, got a date of birth from her, and verified the spelling on the name.
What did you do then, officer?
I then asked the young man sitting in the passenger seat what his name was, and he gave me a name, which was incorrect as well. Both times, there was great hesitation on both parties in giving the names.
What did you do then?
I then asked if she had a registration for the car that would show who the owner was. She had stated the car belonged to her father. It was registered to her father. She was unable to produce any type of a registration or insurance card. That time I went back to my vehicle and called for a backup.
When backup arrived, Mary Kay was immediately placed under arrest and transported to the King County Police Station. There, she was handed over to Community Corrections Officer Gilkey for questioning. Inside the interview room, Mary Kay tried to explain how she and Vili ended up together that night. She spoke quietly at first, recounting the events in a calm, almost measured tone, her version of the night's circumstances carefully documented by the officer.
At that time, she told me that she had been to a late movie the previous night. She stated that prior to going to the movie, she'd done some shopping. After the movie, she had returned to her home while she was gathering her belongings from the shopping and whatnot. And as she was getting ready to go in the home, the boy stepped out of some bushes and high growth around the residence she was staying at, and got in her car. She stated that subsequent to that, they started to kind of argue. She was telling him that she couldn't have contact with him. He was putting her in jeopardy with her supervision. And she was in the car for 10 to 25 minutes when the police arrived. I asked her further about that. And on further questioning, she stated that they were in the car that long because she had been told by the boy that he had run away from home, and she wanted to make sure that he got somewhere safe so that he could return home.
While Officer Gilkey interviewed Mary Kay, Detective Bean spoke with Vili in a separate room. Separated by walls, their accounts of the night began to diverge. Details about where they met, who initiated contact, and what unfolded after dark differed sharply from Mary Kay's version of events. As the interview continued, the inconsistencies between their stories became increasingly clear.
He was somewhat hesitant to talk. He told me that he didn't know at this point who he could trust, that he felt the things that he said to me would be used against Mary, that he identified her as Mary. But then we did, after he talked with his attorney, we did discuss the case. I asked him how they had come into contact the previous evening. He told me that he had wanted to talk to her and that he remembered a pager number that he had used earlier in their relationship. And so he was in the White Center, Roxbury area of Seattle, and he called the pager number from a payphone. She called back a few minutes later. He said that they talked for, he thought, 30 to 45 minutes on the phone and decided to go to a movie. This would have been, by his estimation, between 7 and 8 p.m. On Monday night, 2nd. He then told me that he took a cab and a bus up to the north end of Seattle, to the Oak Tree Plaza. I questioned him a little bit about the cab. He told me at that point, he said he didn't actually take a cab, that she'd come over and picked him up in her car. I asked him what kind of car she was driving. He told me it was a small German-made car. and that they then went up to the Oak Tree Plaza. He described that they bought some food at Larry's Market, that they then went to a movie at the Oak Tree Cinema. Asked him what movie. He described the movie to me, gave me the starting time of the movie, which we later verified as well. He said that following the movie, he thought they got out around midnight. They returned to her car and drove down and parked at the spot where Officer Harris contacted them later that morning. He felt that they were in the car hour and a half or so. I asked him what had gone on in the car. Had there been any contact? He told me that they had not had sex that night, that there had been no sexual contact. He described to me, however, that there was, they held hands. He held her. They kissed frequently in the car. I asked him if there had been any other types of contact. He told me that he had rubbed her leg. I asked him what he meant by that, and he indicated that he had been rubbing her right thigh, at the top of her thigh. Again, I questioned him fairly closely if there had been any fondling or sexualized touching, and he said no.
Following her arrest, on February 6, 1998, Mary Kay was brought back before Judge Linda Lau for resentencing. Having violated the conditions of her deferred sentence, she now faced the possibility of serving the full term, 7.5 years in prison. During the hearing, prosecutors focused on the evidence recovered from Mary Kay's car, arguing the items pointed to deliberate planning and a clear disregard for the court's no-contact order. Detective Bean was called to the stand to testify, detailing what was found inside the vehicle and explaining the significance each item held in the case.
You talked about a strong box.
Yes.
What was in the strong box?
It appeared to be some of Miss Letourneau's personal papers. It was not locked. We opened it, and there was a significant amount of cash in the car.
And how much cash was there in the car?
There were 62 $100 bills.
So a total of $6,200?
Yes.
In addition, Detective, could you just describe basically for the court what this car looked like? What kind of items were in the car? Was there clothing?
Yes, there was quite a bit of clothing. There were men's briefs still in packages, some socks. There was quite a few articles of baby clothing, infant wear, a small dress for a young baby girl. There were some items in the trunk that were baby books, storybooks, that type of thing, some small puzzles, articles like that. There were some large boxes that contained what to me looked like possibly some materials potentially from Miss Letourneau's school classes, reports, looked like maybe some lesson outlines, that type of thing.
And you said you found beer bottles in the car?
There were 2 beer bottles, yes.
Was there anything else that you found in the car, Detective, that you believe to be of particular evidentiary value?
I do. We located in the glove compartment of the car a letter. The letter is dated January 28th of 1998. It is from the boys' school. I believe it's from a vice principal. And it's a letter that is addressed to his mother.
And that was found where?
In the glove compartment of Miss Letourneau's car.
And what did that letter indicate?
It was an advisory notice to his mother that the school was anticipating a change in his status as a student at the school.
He was being suspended, is that accurate?
Yes,
And this was a letter notifying his mother on
Yes.
January 28th
It was dated January 28th.
and found in her car, in Ms. Letourneau's car.
Following the testimony of Officer Harris, Officer Gilkey, and Detective Bean, the time came for closing arguments. The prosecution went first. Prosecutor Lisa Johnson once again laid out the full scope of Mary Kay's defiance, her repeated disregard for court orders, the lengths she went to conceal her actions, and the evidence now before the court. Johnson argued that Mary Kay had demonstrated she could not succeed under the SOSA conditions and urged Judge Lau to impose the full sentence, insisting that anything less would fail to acknowledge the seriousness of her repeated violations.
Your Honor, this court extended the defendant a privilege that she has demonstrated that she does not deserve. This woman who stood up before the court and demurely proclaimed to this court at sentencing, "Help me, help us all," clearly has no intention of helping herself or helping any of the individuals she has harmed. Once again, she blames the victim for her own conduct. Other than a few words at sentencing, she has never shown any commitment at all to comply with the treatment process and instead has used it for her own manipulation. It's nearly universally acknowledged, even by the treatment providers that the defense presented to the court, that she doesn't believe she needs treatment because she doesn't believe she did anything wrong. And she continues to display that same conduct. Furthermore, Your Honor, it is certainly arguable that it appeared as though Ms. Letourneau was ready to leave the jurisdiction. Her belongings were all in her car. They were not at the residence that she was to have been living at for a month. There was $6,200 in a car. Is it reasonable to believe that someone would park a car in virtually the middle of Seattle with packages that one can see from the back of the car and leave it with $6,200 in cash in the car? The only reason that you would be in the car or leave that kind of money in the car is if you were going to be in that car. We further find a passport that is virtually hidden underneath the floor mat and up by the gas pedal, and an empty gas can at the top of the back of the car. This is all evidence that certainly would lend someone to believe that they may be fleeing. This court has no option today but to immediately revoke the 89-month suspended sentence. She should be sent to prison. Then at least her victim can grow. The people she has harmed can grow and be safe from any further manipulation and control that she has on them. We respectfully ask that this court revoke Ms. Letourneau's suspended sentence.
Following Prosecutor Johnson's recommendation, the defense presented its closing argument. Mary Kay's attorney, David Gerke, delivered an impassioned plea on her behalf. He spoke at length about the devastating impact a lengthy prison sentence would have, not only on Mary Kay, but on her 5 children, and on Vili. Gerke argued that at her core, Mary Kay was a well-intentioned but deeply troubled woman in need of treatment, not incarceration. Prison, he insisted, would only deepen an already tragic situation.
I received a letter from my pastor almost a year ago that I'd like to share. David, I've been reading the paper. Our thoughts and prayers are with you as you handle the trauma of the Letourneau case. May God grant you the wisdom of Solomon and the heart of Jesus. The wisdom of Solomon and the heart of Jesus. If you recall to your Bible days, Solomon had to worry about one child. Should he split it in half and give it to both or not? You, Your Honor, have 3 sets of children that you have to deal with. And again, I do not envy you today. We have a young boy who might be delusional, who you were told about at sentencing was perhaps suicidal, who felt responsible back then and certainly feels responsible for today's outcome. His life's been turned upside down. He's been abducted by TV crews. He's been subjected to ridicule. He's been kicked out of school. And the paradox is that to protect him, we're going to lock up Mary, which will make him more depressed, cause more counseling, and perhaps more dire consequences. Society does not need to be protected from Mary Letourneau. Even Dr. Wheeler told us that. My children, your children, they do not need to be protected from Mary Letourneau. She's fixated on one person. Your Honor, the person that really needs to be protected from Mary Letourneau is Mary Letourneau. It broke my heart to see Audrey come into the jail back when Mary was allowed visitation with her and start to smile and sort of kick like a little infant does because she was going to see her mother. And we were getting close to reunification. Audrey will never have a mother. We have 4 other children that have a heavy, heavy concern on today's position. And while Steve and Kelly are doing their best, Mom is still Mom. The firstborn son, 13 years old. Dr. Conti points out the suicidal implications there. His adjustment problems, the realization that Mom might miss his graduation, his first prom. Your firstborn, you don't love your other children less, but you love your firstborn differently. And there's a special bond. Mary's going to lose all of that. The oldest daughter, that special mother-daughter bond. I have 5 sisters. I'm well aware of the bond between the oldest daughter in my family and my mother. That 10-year-old girl, her first date, her graduation, whatever happens in the next 7.5 years. That's part of justice, and sometimes justice is harsh, and that's justice. And sometimes justice requires mercy and opportunity. Last April or early May, the children were pulled out of school on short notice because there wasn't proper supervision. They were sent away all in one day. A good friend of mine lived next door to those children and described the sobbing, the wailing, the heart-racking, utter despair of the oldest daughter as the only stability she had left, and that was her best friend from next door, was being yanked from her. And they have held on to some semblance of stability, knowing that 6 months, in a year, they could reunite with Mom. The 2 youngest children of Mary's from Steve are 6 and 3, the same ages as my children. They played with my children. I can't imagine telling my children that Mom's going to be gone for 7.5 years.
Following Gerke's emotional argument, all eyes turned to Judge Linda Lau as she prepared to deliver her ruling. The courtroom fell into a tense silence as Judge Lau addressed the room. her words marking the final turn in an already emotional hearing.
The sex offender alternative is the only sentencing option under the Sentencing Reform Act, which allows a judge to suspend a sentence and impose treatment for eligible first-time offenders. The legislature recognized that if the opportunity for treatment is given, the consequences for failing to comply must be severe. Less than 3 months ago, you were given the opportunity, Ms. Letourneau, for treatment. Within weeks of your release from jail, you purposely violated the conditions of your sentence. These violations are extraordinarily egregious and profoundly disturbing. This case is not about a flawed system. It is about an opportunity that you foolishly squandered. The suspended sentence is hereby revoked, and the original sentence that I imposed not long ago of 89 months is imposed.
As Judge Lau's words settled over the courtroom, Mary Kay's reaction was immediate and raw. After being shackled at the wrists and led from the courtroom, Mary Kay Letourneau became inmate number 769014. Her incarceration only the beginning of the next chapter. Not long after she entered King County Jail, a stunning revelation exploded across headlines. Mary Letourneau was pregnant once again. The news landed like a shockwave. Public outrage was intensified, fueled by the brazenness of the violation and implications it carried. Yet, in an interview from prison, Mary Kay reiterated her belief that her relationship with Vili was a story of love, not exploitation. Despite the fact that he was only 14 years old, she insisted Vili was the love of her life.
You were told when you got out to stay away from Vili. Why didn't you?
I was told by the counselor that was in charge in a little booth at the jail with a piece of glass between us that I would not have any contact with my children.
When you got out?
From the time I got out, for a minimum of 6 months, no contact with my children. Not a birthday card, not a present, not a phone call, no contact.
You had not been told that before?
Oh, no. And at that very moment, I decided that I will go to prison so that I can pick up the phone and say, I love you to my children. There was no deterrent for me not to see Vili Fualaau. He was the father of my newborn. We loved each other. And the worst that could happen was that I would go to prison, which I was going to anyway.
You didn't mind serving 7 more years?
I didn't believe it was going to be that long. I thought maybe a year.
I don't think people know this. This is the first time I've heard this. I mean, they think you were told, stay away from Vili, and you said, I can't, and you went back into the relationship and jeopardized things.
Well, that's the way it was presented by the prosecution to the court. And I haven't had an opportunity to ever tell anyone.
As Mary Kay sat behind bars, pregnant, 14-year-old Vili struggled to cope with the reality that he was about to become a father of 2. With no stable income and mounting financial pressure, Vili turned to the media, where paid interviews offered a temporary lifeline. In May 1998, the tabloid outlet The Globe offered Vili his first financial payout in exchange for his story. In the interview, he revealed his identity publicly for the first time and spoke candidly about his relationship with his former teacher, describing in explicit detail their sexual encounters. Though the money provided short-term relief, it also exposed Vili's life to an entirely new level of scrutiny, one he was unprepared to navigate. Following Vili's interview with The Globe, Media interest in his story only intensified. European publishers, eager to capitalize on the growing international fascination, entered negotiations. Eventually, Vili sold his story to a French author for $250,000, resulting in a book titled Only One Crime, Love. Released on October 16, 1998, the book drew heavily from interviews with Mary Kay, Vili, and his mother Suna, offering an unvarnished portrait of their lives and their continued defiance of the law. The book provoked immediate outrage. Its candid descriptions and sympathetic framing of their relationship ignited public debate and renewed scrutiny. In his own book, If Loving You Is Wrong, author Greg Olson reflected on the French publication and the disturbing dynamics it revealed. Quote, while Mary Kay wrote of her undying and spiritual love for Vili, the teen wrote of waiting to have sex with her and betting a friend $20 that he could nail his teacher and living in her car while she was released from jail. Mary Kay and Vili also wrote how they disregarded the law and continued to see each other after her arrest. When she went into labor with Audrey, it was Vili who drove her to the hospital, though at 13 he didn't have a license. Vili wrote of a life in a violent home. He also wrote that before they consummated their relationship, Mary Kay had told him that when her then 2-year-old daughter becomes of age, Vili should marry her. The book also described Mary Kay's month of freedom in January 1998 as one of sexual escapade after another. She wrote how she even snuck Vili into her colleague's house for nights of sex. When Mary Kay was arrested the second time in the car with steamed-up windows, Vili wrote how she threatened to take her own life and how they had devised a Romeo and Juliet pact. Mary later said there had never been any thought of taking her own life.
In exchange for $50,000, Vili comes out of the shadows and does a tell-all interview with a tabloid newspaper, The Globe. Then he and Mary Kay write a book, The Only Crime, Love. It is published in France.
Here's Mary's chapter about her love and how sensitive this boy is and how wonderful he is. And then his chapter was graphic. I mean, he was talking about all the places they did it, and then we went over here and did it there, The two of those things together wasn't right. It didn't come off, I think, the way anybody that was trying to win her any kind of sympathy would have wanted. But the lawyers did push for that. They did want that graphic element in there because they thought it would sell copies.
She shouldn't be punished for being in love with me. It's hard for me. We can't have any contact. We can't speak to each other, talk to each other. Can't even write letters. I can't really say, for sure I'm going to get back with her. If I ever see her again, we're going to have a lot of talking to do before we do anything else.
As media interest in the case reached a fever pitch, Mary Kay gave birth to their second daughter the same day that the book was released. Vili, having just turned 15, was now a father of 2. The pressure on him, emotional, financial, and public, took on a whole new life. In February 1999, Vili appeared on Inside Edition, carrying a stack of personal letters Mary had sent him from prison. As he read them aloud, the tone was unmistakable, lines thick with obsession, jealousy, and control. In one letter titled Test Time, Mary threatened automatic castration if Vili so much as looked at another girl. In another, she wrote, quote, "The only kids you're having are mine. I'll give you 18 if that's what you want, but your babies are mine." In yet another, she accused Suna of stealing our babies and not caring enough about Vili. Vili told the camera that he thought Mary sounded a little crazy, but admitted he liked that she wanted him to stay true to her. At the time, the public didn't know how these letters had reached Vili, given their no-contact order, but they would soon find out. Mary and Vili had continued communicating throughout her entire incarceration. Mary smuggled notes out of jail, sometimes hidden inside baby formula containers, sent out for her newborn daughter. Prison officials repeatedly disciplined Mary for violating communication rules. She spent multiple stints in solitary confinement, one lasting 5 months, another 4.
We obtained one of those letters, and in it she says, "I do know that you'll love me forever. I'm afraid to love you as much as I do, because I know you need to love someone in a different way, in a way that we can't have. All of this love you have for me, you get to give it to someone someday. If there wasn't such a thing as family loyalty, tradition, peer pressure, and laws, we'd have a perfect love. Maybe it's too powerful for this world. Never say goodbye. Forever, love."
She would smuggle letters out through her breast milk, and she just could not resist having contact with him. There were later letters that were not love letters. They were disturbing. And those were ones where she would be very jealous if he was with other girls, would make some kind of veiled threats, one of them physical, to affect his anatomy, his male anatomy, if he strayed. Mary had a thing about control over Vili, an obsession, and that's reflected in those letters.
As Vili continued speaking to the media about his relationship with Mary Kay was reportedly hurt and felt betrayed. She acknowledged that he was doing it largely for the money, as a way to support their daughters, but according to Mary, the explanation didn't soften the blow. The public airing of their private correspondence cut deeply. Determined to tell her side of the story, Mary Kay began corresponding with author Greg Olson about a potential book project. Over the course of several months, the two exchanged letters, with Mary offering her perspective from inside the prison walls. Eventually, Olson arranged to meet her face-to-face. In his book, he recounts that first encounter. Quote, "I sat down in a cafeteria-like visiting room and waited with the others for the visit to start. When Mary finally arrived, she was small, so thin, and her childlike demeanor startled me. She had come from the kitchen where she was folding napkins. It was a job, she said, she didn't mind. We talked about her life in prison, and she told me that it had been difficult, but she knew it wasn't forever. She chatted with a kind of exuberance that didn't fit her circumstances. I asked her about it, and she told me that she never gets depressed, that she's an up person and always has been. What had happened to her after she fell in love with her student was an inconvenience, but not the end of the world. I noticed her silver ring, and I asked to see the inscription. She tugged on the band for a second, then stopped herself because it might be a violation of the rules. It was inscribed with, 'I'll be there,' she said. She told me how she and Vili had searched the Seattle area in hopes of finding the perfect ring. Vili had even sketched out the letters for the inscription. Everything, Mary said, was created for their perfect union. I didn't know you could wear jewelry here, I said. Only a wedding band, she answered. Her smile was coy. Then are you married to Vili? I asked. Yes, and it is blessed, she said. She told me they had exchanged vows of eternal love on Mercer Island. She told me she could make it in prison another year, but she was fearful that she could not really survive her full sentence. I'm willing to do a fair amount of time, she said, but I don't think I really can make it here much longer than a year more. She wanted to be out so she could be with Vili. The teenager, the father of her youngest children, was not an enigma to Mary, but a masterful warrior who had captured her heart. He was younger than she by far more than 20 years, but in some ways, he was her superior. It blows my mind, she said of the boy's character. He's truly amazing. He dominated me in the most masculine way that any man, any leader could do. I trusted him and believed in him and in our future. Mary had given up everything, her family, her freedom, and her profession for the love of a 13-year-old. He was an artistic genius, the old soul. He was the leader. She followed him. He was the master. He was the adoring object of her affections. That's how she saw it. The roles they embodied, she said, were from another era. He dominated her. I am with Vili. If you are truly in love, the roles are natural. She never felt that way with Steve because he was not, she said, her equal.
During Olson's one prison visit with Letourneau, he says he asked her about the wedding band she wears.
She said, Vili and I are married. We got married on Mercer Island, a suburb of Seattle, and had a ceremony that's been blessed. We're married. But what she wants more than anything now, I'll tell you, is Vili to step forward and really marry her. I mean, Mary wants clemency. And she thinks the way she can get it is to have Vili Fualaau step up to the plate and say, I love this woman. She's the mother of my babies, and I want the court to allow me to marry her.
If Vili formally asks me to marry him now, of course I would say.
Is it your plan to marry Mary Letourneau?
Probably, if it's possible in the prison.
And do you know whether or not they will allow that to happen over there? Those are some details that you're working out, is that correct?
Yeah.
What was the purpose for which she was contacting you?
She said that she had a lot of people helping her in and out of prison. And she said all she needs is my hand in her in marriage or our marriage.
And that if you were to get married to her, that she would be able to get out of prison sooner?
Yeah.
Even if we do get married while I'm still here at the prison, I know that we plan to have a more sacred ceremony with our family and our friends. After that, we're going to provide for our children, and I have 6, so that's a lot of providing for.
As the years passed, during Mary Kay's imprisonment, Vili entered adulthood under the weight of circumstances no teenager should have been expected to carry. By the time he turned 18, his life had been anything but stable. He struggled with the pressures of being a young father, especially as he felt increasingly sidelined in his daughter's upbringing. According to Vili, his mother Suna had taken over much of the parenting, leaving him feeling disconnected and unable to be as hands-on as he wanted to be. The emotional toll was profound. Vili was suffering mentally, emotionally, and financially. He fell into a severe depression, developed intense anxiety, and began forming an unhealthy relationship with alcohol. During this period, he attempted to take his own life twice, but these were not his first attempts. Vili later revealed that he had first tried to end his life at just 8 years old, describing a childhood marked by alleged abuse from his mother. Now, as a teenager and father of 2, he carried the additional burden of guilt, the belief that Mary Kay was in prison because of him.
What are you doing? What are you doing all this time?
It was like an emotional wreck. I mean, for 7 years, just trying to pass time as fast as I can, trying to keep my mind out of the shade. I was going through a very, very, very bad depression. I could have actually died. I have attempted to commit suicide a few times.
What did you choose as a method of committing suicide?
Sleeping pills.
Did you take the sleeping pills?
Yeah. And also a gun.
So you obviously never fired the trigger.
The gun, the spring ended up being broken.
You did press the trigger?
I did. They tried medication on me. They said, you need to take these pills. And I did try it for a while. And then I started, realizing this is just crap. This is bull. My emotions are real, and they don't need to be leveled out. I just felt like, man, I can't take this anymore. I was having so much doubt thrown at me about what things would be like between me and her.
You know that you're going to wait, or do you have any doubt?
My plan through the 7 years was to wait and to see what it would be like when she's out. And, things work out, they work out. And if they don't, they don't.
How did you deal with your children?
How did I deal with my children? That is another story.
Well, it's the same story, really.
Me and my mom, we had Audrey and Georgia. I didn't get all the respect I should have gotten as a father, and my mom just kind of took everything into her own hands and kind of just pushed me to the side and said stuff like, that she knows how to raise kids. She's raised us. And, I had my own ways of how I wanted to talk to my children, what I wanted to say to them, and a lot of things that, that I wanted to give them as a parent. And I just never had those chances. I don't think anybody should have grew up the way I grew up. A lot of kids in my culture or my kind, or we grew up a lot different. I mean, we grew up a lot rougher, and we're exposed to a lot of things that little kids should not be exposed to.
Like what?
We all lived in like this really lower class residential areas. So we're like exposed to a lot of abuse in life, whether it's from your parents or from walking down the street.
Talking about child abuse.
As Vili struggled to navigate his life as a young adult, his mother Suna launched a lawsuit against the Highline School District and the city of Des Moines. Filed in 2000, the suit argued that teachers, police, and school administrators had missed and perhaps even ignored a series of warning signs. The lawsuit claimed that the very people entrusted with protecting children had failed Vili, allowing his relationship with Mary Kay to develop unchecked. Attorneys for the school district and the city argued that no institution nor its employees could reasonably have known what was happening behind closed doors. They insisted that responsibility belonged to individuals, not the system. The defense also highlighted discrepancies between Vili's deposition and his testimony at trial. In his deposition, Vili stated that nothing sexual had happened on school grounds. But on the stand, he claimed that Mary Kay had stripped for him and that they had engaged in sexual activity in the classroom and other school locations.
It's a sex scandal that shocked America. You all remember Mary Kay Letourneau, the teacher who carried on an illicit and illegal relationship with 12-year-old student Vili Fualaau. Well, she's still behind bars, but Vili, now 18, and his mom say they deserve almost $2 million in compensation for the affair. They're suing the school district and Seattle suburb for not protecting a minor from Letourneau's advances. A jury's been deliberating the case since Wednesday, still no verdict. So who's responsible here? Joining me now, criminal defense attorney Jeffrey Feiger. Also here is the author of a book, Greg Olson, entitled If Loving You Is Wrong. He tackled this issue. And still here, former prosecutor Chris Busco. Welcome, everyone. Jeffrey Feiger, are the cops in the school responsible?
Well, the prevailing social mores will tend to blame everyone. But the problem is, in this case, the mother and Vil's conduct also. The facts that were adduced at trial involving the mother allowing them to be together, the mother having knowledge, and even defending their relationship in the past. It's very likely, since I guess the jury was able to consider comparative negligence, that they're going to, the jury's going to say a pox on both your houses. There's going to be a problem there, and I think that's why the verdict is taking so long.
Yeah, I understand that. Well, Greg, I want to ask you about a timeline question, because if, in fact, the first sexual relationship between these two was at the marina after he graduated, he's no longer a student of this school. Now, that was his story for a very long time. All of a sudden, mom convinces Vili to sue. They go into court, and he says, oh, no, we had sex on the school grounds. What did your research show?
Well, actually, it's Mary Kay Letourneau's story that Vili Fualaau is parroting. They did have sexual, intimate contact. It wasn't sexual intercourse. It was oral sex.
Before he got out of school?
Yes. Okay. And really, the defense made a big deal about, Mary being no longer his teacher because it was the last day of school and they should be off the hook for that. But that was a teacher-student relationship. In fact, she took him to summer classes all that summer. So it didn't, stop there. And I think there was some liability on the part of the school district.
So in terms of the information you got, whether it was the janitor that caught him in the bathroom or security guard, you thought it went high enough up that the administrative level should have known about this?
Well, absolutely. The chief of security did know about that marina incident. And he got a phone call about it from the police. He got a fax sent over to him. He got a comment from the wife of one of his officers, who was the wife of a Des Moines police officer, who told him the next day, this crazy thing happened down at the marina with one of your teachers. I think they knew plenty of things. What was interesting to me when I was researching the book was that all of the teachers that I interviewed said, if we had known that Letourneau was in the van at 1:30 in the morning with that boy, all of the incidents that we saw, we think we would have seen them in a different light.
Yeah. So all of a sudden, it's sort of that circumstantial evidence that
hindsight is 20/20. You know, it all. You shake your head, but this jury may not want to throw justice out with a terrible situation here. Remember, with the Marina incident, the police called the mother, who's a plaintiff in this case. And Jeff and I actually agree on this, so it's almost a big shock. And said, "What do you want us to do with your son?" And she said, "Leave him with Mary." So this jury obviously is stuck on a comparative issue of who really is more to blame here for what happened.
And they're very likely also to diminish the damages. It's going to be difficult to convince the jury that this young man, for instance, can't date young other girls his age because of this. The jury's not going to buy it.
Well, an economic loss earnings of $1 million. Wait a minute. What do you think, though, Jeff, about the jury's reaction to all of the money that mom essentially got or spent from various tabloids and television shows? I mean, she's been through
That's why I indicated to you that not only since comparative negligence is being instructed to the jury and they can consider it, it's going to be very high against the mother and indeed maybe even the child, and they're going to diminish the damages to virtually nothing. I think the debate probably is going on even now about liability, because even if they got past liability, I don't think they'll ever hit anywhere near $1 million damage.
And a lot of these damages are very difficult to quantify. Let's say, okay, we agree that he may have trouble dating. How much is that worth? Unless you have a knockout psychiatrist or a knockout economist come in, which I haven't seen in this case, quantify for this jury, they're guessing. They may guess $10. Or they may guess more, but you have a jury that's now stuck on comparative, confused about damages, and shaking its head.
The notion that we've expanded damages and recovery and emotional consequences to, gee, I can't date. Give me
I do. Well, see, I don't want people to get a bad name for lawyers. And see, again, I have a trouble why this case was brought in the first place. But this is the type of case that I think gives plaintiffs' lawyers a bad name, and I shouldn't necessarily say that. But I would have a difficult time telling the jury that this young man is going to have a difficult time in life because of these experiences.
Stepping forward and saying
not to mention he's with his 2 kids.
Yeah.
So let's not throw that out.
You know what? I think when you look at the lawyers, I think you should look at the lawyers that were helping Vili and his mother sort this thing out when it first hit. All of the money sifted through the lawyers' hands in the beginning. They're the ones that created the circus. If you see these people and talk to them, or if you watch them on the stand, they are not particularly smart. They are naive, and they did cash in, but I think it was at the bidding of the lawyers, and I really believe that.
Seriously?
Absolutely. You look at it. In fact, some of the accounting that they showed in trial, the lawyer could not demonstrate where that money went. She didn't get it. Mrs. Fualaau didn't get it.
She spent $25,000 on her daughter's wedding. For heaven's sake.
I say, so what?
The jury is
so
going
what if
to
she
be
spent
very
$25,000 on her daughter's wedding?
I mean, in these type of cases, my experience is that notwithstanding any negligence by the school district or the police, the jury is going to be hardest on the mother. Believe me.
Yes, I agree that.
To defend the lawyers, there's no incentive to use your resources as a lawyer to take a case like this down to a jury. There's just no incentive to do it.
In May 2002, after weeks of testimony, the jury reached its decision. The school district and the city were not held liable. In a later interview, Vili would reveal that the lawsuit had been his mother's idea, not his. He said he never wanted to bring a case against the school or the city. According to Vili, the money he had received from the book deal back in 1998 and subsequent projects had run out, and financial desperation pushed his mother to pursue the lawsuit. He also claimed that, in an effort to strengthen their chances of winning, she instructed him to inflate parts of his testimony during the trial. As a result, the defense was able to use the contradictions between his deposition and his testimony against him. In an interview following the loss of the lawsuit, Vili elaborated on the case and told reporters just how much the situation had affected him. Quote, "My brother was the first person to find out about the affair. He made me do chores and his paper route to buy his silence. When Mary told me she was pregnant, I told her to have an abortion. She cursed me and started crying, so I told her to sleep with her husband to buy some time. I was thinking, what have I gotten myself into? I have nightmares of people dying. Suicide, funerals, and car crashes. Sometimes I have sexual dreams about the praying mantis. After they would have sex, The female would rip the male's head off. Before everything became public, I used to be an A student in middle school. But once everything came out, all the kids started looking at me differently. They started calling me a teacher rapist, like this whole thing was a joke. I started to steal, drink, and run errands for a neighborhood gang. Once, when I was arrested after being caught in the back of a stolen car, the police even teased me. They said, "Hey, aren't you Mary Letourneau's little boyfriend?" I tried to commit suicide. I punched through a window and sliced up my arms because I couldn't take it anymore. Even my own family members were teasing me. Sometimes I feel like Mary didn't really give a crap about me, that I was just some toy, just a piece of a puzzle that she needs to finish to get herself out. But despite that, I still love her. To me, I just think I was lucky. I mean, I didn't mean for us to fall in love or anything. I didn't even really mean for us to get that close, where we could just talk about anything, but we did. I guess I would say I was a normal kid, but to her, I was somehow different. There was something in me that she could see that I couldn't see, and we just, I don't know. The whole thing is just really just a big sin. Just a big sin. With the verdict bringing no restitution or resolution, the Fualaau family was left to process the disappointment on their own. For Vili, it was another chapter in a long series of upheavals. And for Suna, the lawsuit failure marked the end of a legal battle she had hoped would bring accountability. Meanwhile, behind bars, Mary Kay counted down the days until her release. But in 2004, as the end of her sentence approached, media attention intensified in a mix of fascination, outrage, and morbid curiosity. News outlets prepared coverage, commentators revisited the scandal, and the world watched and waited to see what would unfold the moment Mary Kay Letourneau walked out of prison.
Mary Kay Letourneau could walk out of a Washington state prison any time now. She's the former school teacher who had an affair with a student, Vili Fualaau. The relationship that began when the boy was just 12 years old resulted in 2 pregnancies, and for Letourneau, a 7-year sentence for child rape. The big question now is, what's next for both of them? Greg Olson is the author of the book, If Loving You Is Wrong, and Ann Bremner is an attorney who met with Letourneau in prison just last week. And good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Ms. Bremner, let me start with you since you've just seen Ms. Letourneau. What are her hopes for the future? Does she hope to get back with Vili?
She's always said this was a love story. I don't think that's ever changed. Ultimately, I would think that would be what she wants to do, but she wants to be very careful because there's a no contact order in place right now for life. And she's going to abide by what the judge has ordered. And it's up to Vili Fualaau to try and lift that order with the court. It's for life.
You have spent some time, Mr. Olson, with Vili Fualaau. What's your indication? Does he want to reestablish a relationship with her? Will he lift that no contact order?
Although he hasn't done so yet, and he's had many years to do so, he could have gone to the judge at any time. He hasn't. But he does say he does want a future with her. He does at least want to talk to her and figure out what's next for them because they have 2 kids to raise.
Even though there has been a no contact order, she has violated that order on numerous occasions. She has sent several letters from prison and audio tapes.
I don't know that she sent anything recently.
What were the nature of those letters?
They were really kind of disturbing, actually. They were, begging him to go to the judge to get this no contact order lifted, telling him, that he would benefit from their relationship, try to coax him into lifting that order, and he never did.
Let me check back in with you, Ms. Bremner, because he did not reply to any of her letters. He has not lifted that contact order. What's been her reaction to that lack of response from him?
Well, I tried a civil case where he and his mother sued the police department and school district for failing to protect him from Mary Kay Letourneau. And even in that case, we argued that nothing would keep the 2 of them apart. This was only 2 years ago. She was 5 years into her sentence. And during that, he said, he wasn't sure about love. He seemed to still love her, and even said there could be a pay-per-view wedding in the future. It was kind of a question I asked in jest, but he said there could be. So it's clear from what he's been saying for many, many years that there's some interest there. In fact, there's probably love, and this has always been a love story to both of them, including in my civil case.
Their 2 children have been raised by his mother. Will she seek custody of those children?
Mary has 6 children, as you know.
Yes, she has 4 children by her former husband.
She does, and she has 2 children with Vili Fualaau, who are being raised by his mom and his mom's sister. She sees him in prison. She wants to be involved with them in the future, and I think it would be great if they could all work something out without this going into the courts, as this case has been in the courts for many years.
You are shaking your head to this. Why?
I think there will be a battle over this. I think Mary will want those children. She will want to raise them to show the world that this was a love story and this was all good. Suna Fualaau and her family have done a great job raising these kids, and I don't think Suna will let them go, and she said so. She said in court 2 years ago, I'm not giving these children up.
What has his life been like over the last 7 years? Because we've heard reports of struggles with substance abuse. He entered into this adult relationship and fatherhood at a very young age.
Yeah, I think people kind of forget that. He was 12 years old when this thing started, 13 when this happened. He's been rootless. He didn't graduate from high school. He does not have a job. He's living with friends or living with his mother. I mean, he's clearly been waiting for his life to start, and that will happen when Mary gets out of prison on Wednesday.
I mean, Ms. Bremner mentioned a pay-per-view wedding. Is this publicity something that Mary Kay Letourneau embraces? And what's your best guess as to what will happen here?
My thought is Mary is very shrewd about the media. She knows to get her message out there. She knows she can pick up the phone and call anybody at any time and get her story out there. I think she'll tell her story. I think we'll see a book. Maybe a movie even, or something like that. She wants the world to know she served those 7 years for love.